Hello everyone, it's another video, and in this video I'm going to be explaining multi-stage builds in Docker. In the previous video, I explained optimizing Docker images. I explained 3 ways you can optimize your Docker images. The first one was to use smaller base images, like they are fine. Other base images exist. The second one was to understand caching, that every layer in your Docker file is cached, and if one layer is being altered, it means the following layers get to rerun. So for example, if you are not copying package.json, say you're copying all your files, if just any random file changes, it's going to continuously install dependencies, and that's going to like affect the build time, the time it takes for your Docker images to build. And for smaller applications, this may not really tell, but as you start working on larger projects, this becomes a thing. And then for the third step, we're talking about ensuring to install only the production dependencies. That means your dev dependencies, you should not install them in your image. You should not like build them with your Docker image. And at the end of the video, I introduced the very basic multi-stage build, but I did not pay attention to explaining it very well because I had planned to create a new video to do that, and this is the video. So in this video, I'm going to be explaining multi-stage build. This is a feature of Docker based on the idea that you don't need to include everything in your final Docker image. I'm going to pull up a very simple illustration I had done on Canva, and this is the regular traditional Docker file. What we do is we just have the from, the copy, run command and all, and then when we run Docker build, what we don't know is that we have our app, which is our like artifact, the files we need, and these are the files we need to run, which is being built from our source code. And then we have the runtime, then we have the build tools. Now, among these 4 stuffs, we only need the app and the runtime. The source code, which is like, for example, if you are conversant with React, we have like the source folder which contains all of our code. Say you write your code in TypeScript and then you handle backend. Now, what is expected is you transpile this code to JavaScript. Now, and this transpile code is stored in, say, a dist folder. Now, when you build your Docker image, what happens is you still have the source folder, your other files, and then you have a dist folder again, and then you have all your build tools, the dependencies you don't need, TypeScript, and all of those. And you see, at the end of the day, the only thing that is needed is the dist folder, and say maybe your package.json file, so that you're able to install dependencies again in case for example, maybe you have like some packages that you need definitely in your backend, say crypto, say you are maybe generating random random numbers and all. The traditional stage, what it does is we just bundle all of this and dump it into our Docker image, and in essence this leads to large Docker images. So even after you have optimized the base image and all of those things, ensure you're caching the layers properly, this is something to pay attention to. For your small projects, you may really not need to pay attention to this, but it's important to understand it in case you get to large organizations and then you start seeing multiple stages in the Docker file. You get to understand why this exists and why it's important. Now, if you look at this image, at the end of the day, this kind of image, say for example, this kind of Docker file produces large images, say 1 in gigabytes, especially if the base image is not using like a minimal image, right? Now, in contrast, the idea behind multi-stage is that you can use multiple from statements. Now, this is oh my god, that's a mess. But this is one stage here, and this is another stage, and the goal is we have multiple from statement. Now you can declare like the image, you can declare the image, and at the end of the day what happens is when we, so it's just one file, but we have like two stages. Now the first stage, what the first stage does, the first stage contains all your normal code, your dev dependencies and all. So you build, and then you're able to generate the app folder, the src, the build tools, and then all in the second stage what we're just doing is we are copying the necessary files we need from stage 1 to stage 2. So you see here we're only copying the app into the our Docker image, and then we are picking up the runtime from here, because like we also have like an image here, right? We're picking up the runtime, and then we pick the app from here, and then this time around we are doing away with the build tools, we're doing away with the src folder, and this gives us a leaner image. We only pick what we need. Our final image only consists of the app and the runtime, and this leads to a way smaller image. Now enough of all of this illustration, and let's see it in practice. So I created two Docker files. We have the Dockerfile.single, then .multiple. We're going to start with Dockerfile.single. Bear in mind I created a Docker ignore file, so obviously you want to ignore various other things that you don't want to get built into your Docker image. This is very similar to your git ignore files you use for GitHub. So obviously you don't want to like build your Docker files, you don't want to build the node modules folder. And remember, this is a TypeScript project, so to test that everything works well, I ran the npm run build command. So obviously I don't want to add this to my Docker image and all of those, right? Now come to the Docker single file. Now this is the traditional way, and I'm just going to return this to 22. So we just have the normal Node.js based image, and then we create a working directory, we copy a package.json file, we install. Now here we cannot just install dev dependencies because we need to transpile our code. We need to generate the dist folder, and for this to happen we need to install both the normal different dependencies and the dev dependencies. And then remember, in our package.json file we're using tsc for us to be able to transpile TS files to JS files. Now that is why we need to install all of the dependencies here, and then we copy all our code into the root folder, then we run npm run build, we expose the port, and then now we're able to access the JS file in the dist folder. Now this is what a regular Docker file is going to look like. Now but what happens is this gives us a very large image. Say I go to my terminal. Now let's verify Docker images that we have none. Let's say Docker peers, here we have none. So I'm just going to build the image. So say Docker build. Since it's not just Docker file, so we need to specify the file. That's going to be Dockerfile.single, and then let's get specify the tag here, node app, and let's just say single, and then context. And then what's going to happen is just going to build, I think some layers should be cached for me, so this should be fast, but I'm not sure. Okay, so apparently nothing is cached, so this took quite a lot of time, and you can see it here, 11 seconds, 12 seconds for the base image, because the base image is a large one. And then when I run Docker images, you see we have almost 1.2 gig, and this is solely because of the base image. Now I'm going to add Alpine here, and I'm going to build another Docker image. This time I'll say single. This should be way faster. Yep, because a lot of things are now cached. Yeah, and then when I confirm the images, you see this is way smaller. We have 899 megabytes here, and although this may look lean to you now, but this is as a result of the base image reduction. What's happening here is we still have a lot of files that are not necessary. We don't need those files, and we see what the base image looks like. But now let's look at what multi-stage is going to give us. Now with multi-stage, we have the opportunity of having two from statements. We have from here. Now we're using the same base image. Most times, say it's a React application, you may end up just using an NGX base image here, and then that it slims down your image size way much. But we're using the same base image here, and what happens with multi-stages, you get to name your name each stage. So for example, for this stage we're naming it build, so we can be able to reference it later and be like, okay, from build I want to copy a particular folder into my current folder. So what's happening here is that we are getting the node image, we're creating our working directory. Okay, I'm going to switch this to 22. We're creating our working directory, and then like previously, we are copying our package.json file, we're installing the dependencies, we're copying, and then we're running npm run build. This is going to produce the dist folder. Now this is just like our single file, so everything stops here. But now what we are trying to do is, at this point, we have been able to generate the dist file, which is the artifact, which is what we need, and then but we are not going to add all of the whole build tools and all of those dev dependencies and all of those things we don't need into our final image. Now this is what is going to determine the final image, and what we are doing here again is we are declaring the base image, we're creating the working directory, and yeah, this is really not needed. It depends on you, right? Now, but what's happening now is we are copying the package.json file. Now for some, say a React project, you don't need your package.json file again. But like I mentioned during the single build, why we're not able to install just normal dependencies here is because in your Node.js backend code, you would still need some packages. Say for example, you are using crypto library, or using bytecrypt, or you're using one of these font libraries and all, right? So you need to still access this library. So that is why we have our package.json file here, and we're still going to install, but this time around we're only going to install the dependencies. We're going to omit dev dependencies, and now this is where the whole this is where the whole magic is happening. So what we're doing here is we're copying over the dist folder that was generated in the stage 1. So we're saying from build, and that's why you need to name your stages. So we're saying from build, we are copying the dist folder into app.dist, like the folder we're creating here. So we're copying the dist folder, and then we're exposing a port, and then this way we're able to we already have just the dist folder in our project. So apparently what our project is going to look like is, so I'm going to show you what our project is going to look like compared to other images. And now this time around we can just go and let me clear. It's going to build, so say Docker, I think I can just use the last, yeah, something like this. So Docker, this is going to be multiple, and then it's going to be Dockerfile dot multiple build blah blah blah, and then looks like I've made a mistake, so sorry. It's not multiple, it's multi, I guess. Yeah, multi. Why did I come up with that name? Yep. And then when we run this, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that are cached, so this is going to be way faster. I have our image. So now when I just run Docker images, we have the third one. So this is the new one we just created, and you see it's even smaller than this. So even though we're using the same package. So we're using the same image, node 22 alpine, node 22 alpine, and the image size is smaller, though it looks not really significant. But when you're running on large project, that's when you get to understand the significance of all of this, and you see this is just way big above there, right? And now I'm just going to show you. Well, so first of all, okay, so I'm just gonna say, let me run, say docker run go and move this, and then node multi. I think we can run this. So you see in our multi image, these are the only files we have available. Apparently it's only the dist folder which we copied over from the first stage, and then because we added the package.json file, we have all of this. So that led to a smaller image. Now imagine you are say a React application where you don't need your package.json file and all, so you just have the dist folder, the build folder, and you don't have all of this. So it gives you a very linear image, and that is very important even for security, for speed. For speed, and it ensures that you have a very linear, your cloud storage is used appropriately. Now let's also run, say, node app single outline. Now you see here we have the tsconfig file which we don't need, we have the src file which we don't need. Now both of these are not needed, and you see why it's even quite linear is because we have the docker ignore file. Imagine we did not have that, it would have had a lot of other files, but like here in the SR, now it looks like it's just few files, but if we decide to like go into the src file, so the src folder, notice that we're going to have all of our source code, and in a normal project the src folder is going to have a lot of folders and files and different things and images, and all of those are just going to be there. And still again in the dist folder we're still going to have all of them again. So that's what leads to bloated images, and this is something you should actually pay attention to. So you should make sure you are using multi-stage builds. There is more to multi-stage builds, but we just need to pay attention to each layer, understand what each layer is doing. And for example here we're using the same base image, so yeah, you can just use one base image. So let's say you just have from something from this as build, and then here you can just say I think from build, as say stage, and then here you can just say same thing from build as runtime, as runtime. So you're just going to be leveraging this image, so you don't have to like repeat several times, understanding that we're very sure that this is what we are going to be using all through. And this way, even in your Docker file, you can decide to just run this stage. Say you just want to run the build stage, so you can have something like docker build, and you use the target flag, specify the name, that is the name of the stage. So okay, this is just going to be stage, so target stage, and then you specify the tag. Let's call this node app, and let's call it stage, and then the context. So when you run this sorry, I think we did not specify the file. So let's say -f dockerfile dot multi. So apparently what just happened here is we only ran the first stage of our Dockerfile. We only ran this. We did not run all of this. So in case you want for debugging and all, this can be something. So let's say we'll come here and we say Docker images. You see, we have the stage here, and then we can be able to like say Docker run node, and the okay, so that will be stage ls, and then yeah, so we see we have all of the files here, because in stage 1 we are just doing what we did in the Dockerfile single, so that's what we're doing here. We are generating the dist file, we're installing all the packages, we're now like with both dev dependencies, we're copying all the files and all, right? So that's why you see we have all the files here. So these are just basic things you should bear in mind as you write your Docker images, and I hope this explained Docker multi-stage builds in Docker. And if you have any question, please ask them in the comment section and I'll try to answer every other question. And if there's any other video, any topic you'd like me to explain, you can drop them in the comment section. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.